Come on in.
Okay. Welcome, Governor.
Hi.
Kate, you want to set the table for us and give the background?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks
Hey,
for
Al.
being here today. We're really excited about this. I just want to give you a quick backstory on the Life of the Party series. So the idea is to fill the room with a younger audience, 20 and 30-somethings, college students, young professionals from around the state, to have an opportunity not only to ask questions that are of importance to all of you, but also to get to know these candidates as people, to find out, how they think about things, what they do on the weekend, the answers to the questions that you don't hear elsewhere. So with that, we certainly want to get you engaged. So if you have questions at any point, there are a couple people in the audience with microphones. Definitely raise your hands. Don't wait for us to ask if you have questions. Just get those hands up. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. And we wanted to have a chance for you to meet the rest of us. So Matt, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Matt Toy. I'm a board member from Stay Work Play.
From where?
From Stay Work Play.
Okay.
And I'm Sarah Stewart, and I'm the president of Be Fresh Consulting here in Manchester.
Okay.
And I'm Mike Skelton. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce.
And I didn't introduce myself. I'm Kate Lesko, the president and CEO of Stay Work Play New Hampshire.
So thank you for being here today, Governor. We have, as Kate said, a room full of young professionals, college students, and we prepared a number of questions on different things that I think you've been asked. And we're going to ask about some of those traditional issues too, the policy issues. We want to get to know you a little bit. But to start, I wonder if you could just...
Can I say a couple things before we get into questions?
Please.
So I sit here and I look at all of you, and you got to go for it. Have big dreams. Don't let anybody talk you out of what you want to do. My daughters are younger than you, but they're getting close to. They're going to be 16 and they're going to be juniors next year. So we're starting now to think about college, And so when we think about college, we think about what do you want to be in your life. And I want to tell you something. I believe that everybody who is born special. That I believe everybody who's born has something about them that's unique. You should feel really good about it. Have you ever thought about that? I mean, this is a little Christmas present, Hanukkah present. No, a lot of people don't know that. They think, well, I'm just like along with everybody else. But you're not. You were made special, and you were made special to do significant things in this world. And you have certain skills, and the people sitting next to you have certain skills. And when we put these together, we become part of a pretty big mosaic. And that is a mosaic that's determined to make this world a better place. So I just want you to think about it. And, I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning about what it's like to be in college and nearing graduation. For me, I remember when I was in college nearing graduation, it's like, okay, Mr. Big Talker, this is my conversation with me in the mirror. Time to show and not keep talking. A lot of tension, a lot of pressure, right? Put on yourself. You feel you have it on from your family. Do the best you can. And if you have troubles, and if you're confused and you feel like, wow, I don't know what's going to happen, you got to go talk to somebody. Nothing wrong with that. And so I would like you all to just realize that it's a great world and a great country, and you can do great things and never let anybody talk you out of it. So I wanted to start with that. But go ahead. What would you like to know? What do I do on the weekends? What do I do on the weekends? I come to New Hampshire. That's what I do on the weekends.
If we had some snow, you might be able to ski. Yeah.
No better place to be then.
Kate, you've got a good opening question that's
Sure.
in line with our theme. Why don't we lead off with that?
Yeah, so built around this idea of life of the party, if you were elected president and you could invite, let's just say, the 40 top young professional leaders from New Hampshire, from the country, wherever you want to choose, what would the party look like? What music would you play? What food would you serve? What would you talk about?
We would definitely go Lawrence Welk. We would serve, what could be the most boring food? That's what
Plain pasta?
Yeah, no sauce.
No sauce.
Oatmeal.
Well, first of all, if I'm president, you can all come sleep in the Lincoln bedroom, but not all at once, okay? Now, what's your question? Who would I invite?
Who would you invite? What would a party look like if you hosted a party?
Well, what does a party normally look like? You show up, people stand around, they talk. We've got some, some music.
What kind of music?
What kind do you think I'd have?
Well, we had a playlist of some music that you
Did
like
you?
earlier, but
Yeah.
I think they want to hear from you.
Would you really want to hear what kind of music I listen to?
I have a
First
feeling
of
it's
all-
not Lawrence Welk.
First of all, I mean, the problem today with traditional radio, if you listen to it, you hear a lot of things that you like, but they never tell you who the band is. Am I right? So who do I kind of like? Well, I mean, I like Linkin Park, and I just was with them not long ago. In fact, I had them call my daughters because my daughters wanted to go to the concert, and I'm like, you can't go. So I had a couple of members of Chester, who's the lead singer, who's also, I think now, he may be singing for Stone Temple Pilots. I don't know, with the terrible. I don't know if you saw this thing with Scott Weiland. You know, I remember Scott singing, a heroin addict all of his life, and I don't know if you saw the letter that his wife penned. Did you see it? Former
did,
wife.
I did, yeah.
She said, "Do not be holding this guy up." It's great. I mean, he got hooked on drugs and he never got away from them. I don't here to bash Scott Weiland. I'm just talking about his wife's letter. And tragedy, drugs. You know, you got to stay away. I mean, just don't screw around with drugs. I'm just telling you, because you get caught in them. And you know how it happens? You go to a party. Somebody just pills in a bowl, and somebody says, "Hey, let's try one." And your buddy says, "Let's try one." Have you ever seen these at a party? Huh? Any of you ever seen OxyContin at a party? Anybody here? Nobody? You don't want to say yes because your cameras are rolling, okay? But you got to stay away from them. Like I have a family that I know, and their son Sam, he went to Ohio State, and he and his roommate started screwing around with these pain pills, and he ended up fighting his roommate, fist fighting his roommate for the last snort, and he's a recovering heroin addict. Parents are very successful. I mean, these are horrible stories. He moved to Alaska to get away from all the temptation, and you know and then I saw his parents the other day. I said, "How's Sam doing?" "Well, he's in recovery again." So just don't go there, okay? Just do me a favor. Just don't screw around with that stuff. Now, back to bands that I like. You know, I met Dave Grohl, so I do like the Foo Fighters. Some of their stuff.
We have some Pearl Jam in your playlist.
Yeah, you know, I just heard Eddie Vedder. You know, it was a song on the radio with Vedder singing, but it wasn't with Pearl Jam. And you know, he really is excellent. And they found him. I don't know if you ever saw the story. He had done these tapes, and somehow they dug him out, and the rest is history. You know, he's got that. When I look at bands, they've got that kind of that unique. They got that unique sound. And so, you know, I like pop, but I still like, you know, I really love Pink Floyd and, you know, the stuff you listen to. And, you know, this is not like, you know, people think that when you get older that you should suddenly like change what you do. Why? I mean, if you like that kind of music, why would you stop listening to that music? And I'll tell you,
It's one of my favorite parts about satellite radio is you can get very specific.
I agree with that. OK Computer, ever heard that CD?
Radiohead, yeah.
Radiohead they haven't had anything since then, but that I like, but I think they're pretty good. And so I like a whole variety of things. So we could play that. I don't know, you know. I'll tell you, I also like this song by Enrique Iglesias, Bailando. You ever heard it? Huh? Man, that guy lives a life. Okay, what a life he has. So, you know, we just show up and relax and talk. I also like to be around people who are really smarter than I am. It's
Well,
stimulating
you're in good company
to me.
today.
Yeah, I have no doubt. And I like people. Yesterday I was with a guy in New York who owns an NFL football team, and he's also a big developer. And I'm listening to this guy, and he's 75 years old. And I've met a lot of people that have a lot of money since I've been running for president. And what I noticed about this guy that was so cool is he could see the future. You know, he's a visionary. And not only is he a visionary, but when he sees something, he acts on it. And I really admire that in people who can see things differently, people who can we call them visionaries. I love to have conversations, and I like to argue with all of my buddies. We argue all the time.
Along those lines, where do you get your news? Where do you get your information from that informs
Golf
viewing?
Channel.
The Golf Channel. Yeah. It's a good source.
Very hard hitting, yeah.
And Palladia. Y'all get Palladia? You know what Palladia
Yeah,
is?
yeah.
I love that's a great thing. I don't know because I'm traveling so much. I don't always get to see newspapers. I get it for probably I get it online. I get it with print. But I'm not. I don't really want to be a news junkie. I'm not that keen on that. And there was just an article in the New York Times on Sunday about why can't we put our devices down? And it's the network effect where we get on and we get. I don't. See, I have actually. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I have a flip phone, and it's coming back in style, okay? And I have it for two reasons. One is I need battery, and secondly, why do I want all this stuff in the middle of the day? I don't want to, okay, wonder what the weather's going to be in the next hour. I'll find out. I do have an iPad, which I love my iPad. I bought my first one right when they came out. So I see some stuff online, some stuff in newspapers, and people talk to me a lot about things.
What's the last book you read?
I've read so many books. I'm reading now a book about, which I'm not sure I want to read, about this great sailing race in 1905. My wife, by the way, came downstairs the other day, and she said, John, I don't know what to do. There's a war in Korea. And I'm like, what? She's reading Harry Truman, okay? I read a lot of spiritual books. I'm reading a book right now by N.T. Wright. I just finished 5 volumes by a guy named Francis Schaeffer. And then I'm actually looking forward, I'm reading some stupid book on golf. I'll tell you a book I read that I thought was really good. It was recommended to me by Joel Klein, called All the Light You Cannot See. And I thought, did anybody read that? It's an incredible book. I think they're making a movie out of it. So I'm always looking. I always say to my friends, if you've got a great book for me to read, but I don't read like political books. Like I'm not going to read a political book. I'll tell you what I just read.
Are you a book guy or a Kindle book?
I really like to have the book in my hand, but I do have books online too. I read a great book by this great author, David McCullough, on the Wright brothers. That's the one that really, just great book. But I spend a lot of time trying to center myself. I just think that gives you a perspective in the world that's really important to me.
So we've gotten some glimpses into the things that get you excited, but if you have a bucket list, what sort of items are on that bucket list? Other than becoming president?
I've never liked that term.
Okay.
I guess I've never been a big fan of Jack Nicholson, so I don't like have what is it that I want to do that I haven't done?
Well, other than becoming president.
I've done pretty much what I want to do.
Okay.
I've been able to travel around the world. I've been involved in politics. I've been, in television. I've written books. I've had a great life. What I look forward to is spending a lot more time with my wife and being able to travel more. I hope that will come, But I'm pretty copacetic with my life. There's not like these 5 things I need to do to have satisfaction in my life. And let me just tell all of you, my father was a mailman, okay? And his father was a coal miner. He'd go down in the mine and he'd mine all day, and it was tough work. And he'd come up and he'd say, I have this coal, and then whoever the superintendent was would say, oh no, that's a peat. And peat doesn't count as coal, so you get paid. He's constantly being ripped off. Tough life, died of black lung, losing his eyesight. And on my father's side, all of my father's brothers except one, I don't think they even graduated from high school. And her mother couldn't speak English. She came from Yugoslavia. I'm running for president, and this is real. It just shows, what an amazing country we live in. And my family, there's just some of them are shocked. you know. But, you know, I'm also governor of Ohio. It's not like that's, you know, chopped liver. So, I mean, it's been a really great career. And I will tell you, early on, I had to push really, really hard. Sometimes I have to beat people's doors down. I don't do that as much anymore. Being governor kind of, it settles you down, because when you're a governor, you like our father. I did something, I don't know what it was, and my wife said, you know, why did you do something that dumb? You're the father of Ohio, act like it. And that's one of the challenges of running for president, because right now it's like whoever says the most outrageous things, like I came in my bus, what I ought to do is go jump on the roof of it and start making a speech. Imagine how much attention I'd get. But when you're governor, you got to be responsible. And so I'm caught in between being a candidate for president and being a governor, but I kind of have really settled down because of responsibility. But as a young person, you got to push. And I have to tell you, if you're interested in something, start networking. Go find it, whoever it is, because grown-ups want to help you. Just ask them. Like I'll give you a good example. One of my daughters, she's very interested in fashion. She's been to Pink, she's been to Victoria's Secret Sport, and she's really interested, and she's smart. She's very smart. So there's a man I know, his daughter is a rising star at Abercrombie. So he said, you know, my daughter would like to meet your daughter because we know she's interested in this. So I sent my daughter an email, and I said, here's how you follow up. This is who your person is, and you need to call her. And so my daughter's emailing me back, and then I was with her on Sunday, and I said, when are you going to call this lady? Call her up. You can tell her, I'm busy. I'm like taking tests and everything now. But boy, I would sure love for you to come to our home. It's so important to network. If your dad's or your mom's a big shot, you know, it's not as important. But I would expect that most of you are just trying to make it up, you know, without anybody. You got to network. You got to ask people for help.
Well, so you bring up your daughters, and we're here at a school. College debt is one thing that so many students who are coming out of school are trying to deal with, and it is in many ways, and for many people, a crippling thing to deal with through that first part of their career. I'd love to get some of your thoughts on, you know, ways in which we can
Why don't we just
try to help.
eliminate it all and just say you forget it, you don't have to pay it. You don't like
It's
that,
a
right?
little late for me, but it sounds
Yeah.
great for my kids.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
How do you think we pay for that?
Oh, I haven't
You know, I
decided
think
so
there's two things that I would tell you. One is, and I don't know what's happening at St. A's, I can't tell you, but we cannot continue, well, these schools, let me tell you what's going to happen. If they don't begin to control their costs, they're going to be disintermediated. Do you know what that means? It means they're going to become yesterday's news, because people are not going to continue to pay these costs. And the problem is, when you are a leader of one of these institutions, it's really hard to bring about change. And I'm going to give you a good example. I went to a small school in the Midwest. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Ohio State University. And
We have a football team, right?
so the president of the university decided that, and because the CFO of the university said, listen, if we lease our parking garages and surface parking lots, we can get a lot of money, and then we won't run them anymore. The entire faculty went up in arms. They leased these parking lots and garages, and they brought in $500 million. Why was there any opposition to that? Why are colleges and universities doing food service? Why are they building dorms? I mean, why do they own stuff that's not connected to the academic process? But it's very hard as a college president to bring about change, because you're going to have opposition on every front. I figured out, I think the only way that you can, because I was talking to this guy yesterday who I was telling you about before, he's on the board of a major college, and he goes, well, everything's going great. I said, oh, really? Let me send you the report that I have from business people who've studied the cost drivers at colleges and universities, then take a look at it. Healthcare. There should be regional, or, you know, in an area, sharing for healthcare. There should be sharing on IT, sharing on back office, sharing on ordering supplies. Professors ought to be mindful of the cost of books. And they ought to do negotiating, or else opt for the lower cost books. I mean, these are things that, but we don't do them. How about professors teaching one more course? I mean, this doesn't happen, and we have to get this done because these astronomical costs are backbreaking. So what should we do? Maybe one thing we can do is give an employer an incentive to help you retire your debt. That would be a good recruiting tool. The second thing is maybe we set up some sort of a community service deal where you can work off some of this debt. But then going forward, what should people do? Well, they ought to be taking some college credit courses in high school. There's always the option of spending at least 1 year in a community college and dramatically reducing your costs, because all these costs are transferable, or I'm sorry, credits are transferable. So, you know, there's many things that can be done, but it's going to take leadership. And I am very concerned. Look, I loved going to college. It's just fantastic, okay? But I think what will happen over time is somebody is going to offer an online experience combined with a real college experience, and the most expensive schools, people just aren't going to go. They're just not going to go anymore. I was actually speaking, I was a commencement speaker at one school in Ohio. This was, I don't know, maybe about 8-10 months ago or something. And we were getting ready to go in, and the president was standing with me. And I said, what does it cost to go to school here? He told me. I said, that's really a lot of money. Why don't you reduce the cost? You know what he said? Can't reduce the cost, because if we reduce the cost, people will think our school is cheap, and that would mean that it's not very good. You imagine the psychology of that? But that's what runs things, and we've got to... The other thing I heard, and I'm not sure this is true, I'm going to have to check this out. I was given an article today that said 1 out of every 40 Americans somehow gets a paycheck from a college or a university, and the whole article was about the ability of these institutions to lobby against change. I don't know whether it's true for sure, but it is an alarming statistic if that's true. It's sort of a parallel government. You see what I mean?
We do have
Anyway.
a question in the audience.
Yeah. Do we have a microphone that we can bring?
How you doing, Keith Tharp? Thank you for coming. We talked briefly about heroin, and here in New Hampshire we've got a pretty significant problem right now with heroin and other opioids. Post-addiction, how would you deal with individuals who are dealing with addiction?
Well, look, I've been working on this issue for 6 years, and let me tell you really quickly what's happened. The reason I got interested in these women came to see me, and they all had pictures of their children in a picture frame, and all of them had children who were dead from overdose. And they were in southern Ohio, and they said, well, would you help us? I said, well, of course I'll help you. They didn't know where to go. I mean, my mind was blown that nobody wanted to help them. So we shut down these things called pill mills where they were prescribed. You just prescribe these pills willy-nilly, get people hooked, okay? Well, we shut them down. We have taken licenses away from doctors. Our highway patrol has busted more people, more drug dealers than ever in the history of the state. And then we have created protocols where you can't doctor shop. We have protocols on doctors who deal with chronic pain and acute pain. We've changed all the processes in the emergency room. And now we have a process where whenever a pharmacy fills out a prescription, they can have a link to our pharmacy board, and we expect them to make reports so we can look at the practices of the prescribers. Now, we also have a very robust program to treat people who are on drugs. Now, before I get to that, today I was on a call because we have a program called Start Talking. We know that if a student hears don't do drugs, or a young person hears don't do drugs, there's a 50% less likelihood that they will do drugs. Believe it or not. I don't know if those numbers are right, but even if it was 40%, right? So what I say is, everybody just tell kids not to do drugs. We send these emails out, talking points out, and what needs to happen is if you're in the first grade, your teacher needs to talk to you about this all the way through high school. And I think we got to move it into college to say, don't start screwing around with drugs. And then we send talking points as to, what is a good message. We don't have enough involvement in that in our schools. It's the easiest way to communicate to students, right? In the school, in the classroom. You don't need a bunch of sophistication. We don't need to go through the chemistry. Just tell people don't do drugs, because if you get hooked, you could die. And you don't want to do that. So for those that are hooked, we've got rehab programs now, particularly in our prisons. We now have moved our drug rehab programs into the prisons. And when we treat somebody in the prison and then release them to the community, our recidivism rate is lower than 20%, which is like staggering. It's like mind-boggling. Our recidivism rate in the state is about half the national average for all prisoners, because we give people a chance to, get their lives back if they are so willing to do that. So, but it's a constant battle. And, you fight heroin, right? And I was talking to the mayor of Manchester about this. I mean, we face it in Ohio, they face it here. They've taken this drug, fentanyl, I don't know if I'm even saying it right. And this is a drug that is used to treat people like when they're dying of cancer. And somebody figured out that if you take that drug and you cut it with heroin, that you can extend the high for a longer period of time. It's deadly. Now, how do we even figure these things out? So, I think there's a couple things that happen with people that get hooked on drugs. I think, first of all, you kind of wander into it. You're just hanging out with your friends and your buddies, and somebody does this, and then they do that, and then the next thing you know, voila, you're hooked. But we see a number of people who, I believe, get on drugs because they feel as though their life has no meaning. It's like, what's my life about? And that's just terrible. And we need to tell everybody that every single life matters. Period. Exclamation point. And that's what we got to do.
Hey, Governor, one area that you've been leading on in Ohio that gets me very excited is your support for the arts. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit why that's important to you, why you've increased your budget for the arts in Ohio, and as president, would we have an arts supporter in the White House?
Well, yeah, we would. Of course we would, and we'd have a lot of different kind of music in the White House too, okay? But yeah, I think the arts, look, they talk about STEM, I like STEAM, okay, which the art is great. Look, I'm not going to tell you I'm some kind of an art aficionado. I'm not, but I can tell you one of the greatest things that I ever did was when my wife and I went to the Sistine Chapel. Have you ever seen? Any of you ever seen this? If you've seen the Sistine Chapel, raise your hand. Okay, Hunt, haven't you been to the Sistine Chapel? They ought to have like a bed where you can lay down, right? But I swear to you, I looked at all that, and I didn't need to eat. And right now in Cleveland, they have a Monet and a Matisse exhibit on Impressionism, and I'm not going to get to see it. Maybe we get to come to New Hampshire, because that's why I'm going to get to see it. And but it's just incredible stuff. I think art is about it's about the soul. I mean, isn't that why we like some music? We have an argument in a car about lyrics. I never care much about lyrics. They could sing the lyrics in Latin because I don't understand most of them anyway. But it's really usually not the lyrics. It's the sound. It's the melody that sort of penetrates you. I think the same is true with literature, and I think the same is true with art. And I think art allows you to expand. The same is true with nature. Like my wife and I have made many trips to Glacier National Park. I highly recommend it to you. It's one of the most beautiful places. And when you see the trees and the mountains and the water and the animals, and it's just like opens you up. Not to be worshipped, but to be protected and appreciated. I kind of look at art the same way. But I really need somebody to walk around with me to tell me what I'm looking at. Because I was talking to one of my friends who travels with me, and we see paintings of fruit. And he said something to me. He said, fruit is about the shortness of life, because fruit decays, just like our lives are here today, and then before we know it, they're gone, right? And so it's really interesting. Now, some paintings speak for themselves, but others don't. They're more complicated. And but yeah, I think they're big. I think most people thought, as a Republican, I was going to trash the arts or something. I don't know. We get this great reputation. But I've been a big supporter of it, and it's been really good, and it's fun. Do you like the arts?
I do. I'm on the New Hampshire Citizens for the Arts Board, and we're doing an economic impact study here in New Hampshire. So if you have any advice on how to measure the economic impact.
Well, look, I think it's sort of intuitive, isn't it? And then on top of it, one of the things that we've done as we fund the arts is we don't want the legislators figuring this out. I'd rather tell you, you get your friends and you get people together, and then you figure out what you need. Because I think any of the arts, whether it's paintings, whether it's music, orchestra, I think it's best theater. It's best to have people who live in the area getting together and making I don't know how the legislature works in regard to this, but for us, for the first time, I told I don't want the legislature has to finally make a decision, and they can have their inputs and all that. But I would rather have communities deciding what's important to them. And that's kind of how we do it. And that's all. Look, all these things I'm talking about in Ohio, they're all scalable. We're the 7th largest state. I don't use these examples as examples of Ohio because they're all transferable. And I tell you, I read something the other day that was really cool. I called this lady that I know, and she has spent her lifetime renovating Mount Vernon. I said, if I become president, we're going to pull a page out of JFK's book, and we are going to rent some boats, and we are going to have a state dinner at Mount Vernon, which would be just spectacular, right? And that will be a hot ticket.
So believe it or not, that's actually a good segue to a question I wanted to ask about around bipartisanship. And your time in Congress, you were part of several major bipartisan pieces of legislation. And I think my view, and I think a lot of Americans' view, is that that's not possible in Washington anymore. And I'd like to know...
Well, of course it's possible. You just have to do it.
It's not possible in the current environment.
Yeah, I think you have to change it.
So how do you... Well, first, I'd like to know how we lost that, and then how do we change it? How could President Kasich restore that?
Well, the reason why it changed is because the leaders were not telling people to behave. That's why. I mean, when I was there, I ran the Budget Committee, the toughest committee to run, most partisan votes and all that, because it's philosophy, right? Republican philosophy versus Democrat philosophy. And we would get into these private meetings, and my folks would say, well, we're not going to sit here all day, because if you mark up the budget, it can take 12 hours, 14, I don't know, long time. And they go, why don't we just cut them off? You say, well, we're not only not going to cut them off, but we're going to let them win something. Because if they don't win anything, then what, they have a right to participate. We won't let them win anything big, but we'll let them win a few things, And so we would figure it out. You have to treat people with respect. But and when anybody would get out of line, either the Democrats or the Republicans, I'd castigate them. I don't believe you should disrespect people. So that's kind of how you do it. The problem is now that people have become so partisan that if you happen to be in one party or the other, you're the enemy, right? That's just terrible. Now, it can be changed. It's taken me a while to break that down in Ohio. When I was reelected, I met with a group of Democrats, and they looked at me and said, you're really fun. I said, yeah, would you just figure that out? They said, we weren't allowed to talk to you. If we talked to you, I'd invite them to the governor's residence, they wouldn't come. Because if they went, they would be sanctioned for having, what a stupid... It's just outrageous. So now it's better, and we work with them over 4 years to get things done, because you do that. And it's about respect. So what do? You just pull people back together again, and you show them kindness and respect, and you let them have their say on things. And if you don't do that, the system's not going to work. And we have not seen this for a very, very long time. Of course we can fix it. If I didn't think we could fix it, why would I be doing this, I've got a great life. If I didn't think that there was success in doing this, I wouldn't. Why would I do it? For what? For ego? I've got other ways to satisfy that, and that should be not even a priority, right? For the best of us, ego ought to be way down.
Would that involve some golf matches with some of your Democrats in Congress? I know you're a big golfer, right? What's your handicap?
Great question, Mike.
Yeah. It's none of your business. I like to play golf. You know why I like to play golf? It's like anything anybody likes to do. I like to play golf because when I play golf, my mind is clear. if you're good at it. I mean, if you're not good at golf, give it up, okay? And if you haven't taken it up, don't take it up, okay? But I like to play for two reasons. One is that, and I like the competitiveness. I like my friends. But there's another part of it. It's fitness. I like to, I carry my bag. I never ride in a golf cart. I just don't like that. And so I try to, exercise and, best I can on the road here this morning. I did, but I couldn't lift weights. I like to do that. And so there's a fitness element of it too. So it's mental, it's physical, and my wife encourages it. It's going to be, I'm not going to be able to play this weekend, but it's going to be 60 in Columbus.
Yeah.
Be about 60 here, too.
Absolutely.
And so I like to do that. Would you play golf with other people? Yeah, of course you would. You'd have them come. Look, what do I do now? I let them ride in the car. I call their mothers. I call their kids. I mean, you just treat people nicely. And it doesn't mean you're going to get their vote, but I mean, if people like one another, it's great. It's a lot better than when people hate one another. And I got a lot of friends who are Democrats that that I'm not embarrassed to say. I mean, why would I be embarrassed to say I got a friend that's a Democrat? My dad was a Democrat all his life, and I liked him.
Okay. We're running up against time, but I know, Kate, you have a final question to kind of wrap things up for us.
I thought we were going to go for, this was too short, wasn't it? Was this interesting to all of you? I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Go ahead.
So you almost started the afternoon this way, but thinking about, you have this room full of 20 and 30-somethings, students, young professionals. If you were to give a toast on what they should know about, your stance on the presidency, what's ahead, what would you say?
I would say let's have a toast that we will all work in the next 60 days to make sure that we elect John Kasich president. The one thing I will tell you about the way I do things, I want you to know this. Nobody owns me. Nobody tells me what to do. I like to listen to a big variety of opinions, but just because you're rich, just because you're powerful, I respect it, but it gets you nothing. And the best way to be in politics is look at problems, design an answer, and let the chips fall where they may. And that's what leadership is. And sometimes I always like to say that leadership is the willingness to walk a lonely road. Don't mean you want to be all alone out there, because you get too far ahead of people. They can't see you. You can't lead. If you're in the crowd, then you're just part of the crowd. But leadership is a willingness to kind of go alone, and you have to really like yourself. You have to be comfortable with yourself, and you have to have some really deep, trusted people that will tell you if you are way off. Because people, when you have power, they don't like to tell you too much. My problem is I got people tell me too much. I don't know what. No, I'm just kidding. So, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. Okay, and have a great time when you get to the. When's the break coming?
Next week.
A couple weeks. Finals now.
That's next week.
And then are we on semesters here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the end of the first semester. Then okay. So then next week is the finals, you say? And then when does school when do you shut down? And what date?
I think the 19th.
But who's counting?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I always thought the greatest time was right after I'm reelected for like a month. I can just screw off, okay? And then like a knucklehead, I started thinking I should run for president. But when I was in college, the greatest time is that time, right? It's so much fun. So, hey, let me tell you this. You have your ups and downs, your struggles, it's going to do the networking. Show respect, be positive, things will be great. Don't overthink it or worry too much. But I want to tell you this. Remember what I told you in the beginning. If you got stuff in your head and it ain't making sense to you, you got to find somebody to help you straighten it out. Because strength is admitting weakness. Ignoring weakness is weakness. And remember, everybody's got a couple socks in the drawer that don't work out very well. Okay? Everybody does. But there's nothing better in life than liking yourself. I think having a faith that there's a power that cares about us every minute of every day, and having positive people around you. I hope that's helpful to you, because I want it to be helpful to you, not because I'm running for, you think I tell you that because I'm running. I mean, this politics gets old after a while, you know what I mean? Just be real. So,
Well,
is that it?
thank you all for being here
Thank
today.
you.
Yeah, that is it.
I enjoyed it.
Before we wrap up, we want to thank Bank of America for their support for making this program possible. We want to thank Stay Work Play and the New Hampshire Institute here at St. Anselm College for being our hosts and our partners. We have more of these events hopefully coming soon. And most importantly, we want to thank you, Governor John Kasich,
Great,
for being
thanks.
here
I enjoyed
today.
it. It was great. Sorry I was late. It was great. Enjoyed it. Thank you. See you again.
Thank you so much. Best of luck, Governor.